for having me here today to speak with you. And also thank you to University and UPM and Jesus and Pedro for being such wonderful hosts to us as the board has met here in the last 2 days. I think I can speak for all of the board members when I say that we have been well taken care of. So thank you. The board meets here this week at an important time in the history of the OpenCourseWare Consortium. This is only the second time that the consortium has met as an independent organization. So in some ways, the consortium is very much younger than many of the member institutions that belong to it. As I think many of you know, the consortium was incorporated shortly after the board meeting that was held in July last year in Boston. And even before the ink was dry, the consortium realized that it was facing a set of strategic issues that I think are not uncommon to many young organizations. The consortium began very early on as a part of the the MIT OpenCourseWare mission. MIT OpenCourseWare, when it was first started, was charged with publishing the materials from all of MIT's courses and was also charged with expanding the reach and impact of the OpenCourseWare concept. And so from very early on, MIT was committed to helping other universities to share their materials openly. But also from very early on, MIT hoped that the consortium would become an independent organization. And over time, that's happened. Early on, the consortium was operated out of the MIT offices. Originally, I was working with many of the universities that had joined us to share their materials. And then later, we hired John DeLynn to become the executive director of the OpenCourseWare Consortium as well. But the OpenCourseWare Consortium, as operated by MIT, is very different than having an independent organization that operates by itself and with its own leadership. And as we signed those documents about 6 months ago, we recognized there were a set of challenges that I began to speak about as OCWC 2.0. I work at a technical university. I can't get away from the metaphors. But we really needed to upgrade the organization to meet the challenges that it faced. We're very fortunate to be growing at an incredible pace. And I think the growth that you see here with the schools associated with Universia is just one example of that. We have seen the OpenCourseWare Consortium schools go from publishing about 5,000 courses a year ago to 7,800 courses right now. And we've gone from about 100 or 120 members in that time to nearly 250 universities that are now participating in OpenCourseWare publication around the world. This is tremendous, tremendous growth in a short time. And the board, we've been fortunate to have been able to pull this board together at the time that we have to help us to meet these challenges, because there's no one person who has the perspective necessary to give the consortium the strength it needs to meet these challenges. The first set of challenges that I talk about when I talk about this OCW 2.0 concept is what I call optimizing the organization. We have members all over the world, and that membership is rapidly changing. And the way the organization was set up 6 months ago often isn't the way that it needs to be set up now. So we've been having to constantly reinvent the structures of the consortium. The goals have changed over time, too. And the goals have been reevaluated in order to reflect the various perspectives of the members. One of the things, and I'll share with you some of this work later, one of the things that we did at this board meeting was an exercise in organizational effectiveness, where we went back and we looked at the mission of the organization, we looked at the goals of the organization, and we adjusted them to make sure that they were meeting the needs of the membership. The second of these challenges that we face is recruiting re-examining and recruiting leadership. As those goals and that mission change, we need to reassess what kind of leadership we need for the consortium. We've been very lucky so far to have executive directors who were the right people at the right time for MIT OpenCourseWare. I think some of you know John DeLynn. John, I think it's fair to say, has more passion for open sharing than almost anyone I've ever met. And that passion was essential for building the membership early on, maintaining the enthusiasm when it was a very small, very new organization. Since John has decided to return to school, we've been fortunate to have Terry Bays step in as interim executive director. She is no less committed to the cause of open education, but she brings with her a tenacity and an attention to detail that has served the consortium well as we've transitioned to an independent organization. She was central to the writing of the bylaws and to organizing the election that led to the creation of the first board for the consortium. And then refining technologies has been important. The consortium was built on technologies that were often used ad hoc at the last minute, randomly pulled together. And we had to take those technologies and make sense of them so that there was a portal, there was an online presence that the consortium could be built around and that people would recognize as a hub for open knowledge. The second set of challenges that we have I talk about as extending and involving membership. And yes, the growth has been incredible. We've had many, many universities join us, but it certainly hasn't been even across the world. We're getting a great many over here and a great many over here and none from over here. And one of the challenges for the organization is to try to make the movement as inclusive as possible and reach out to those regions of the world who are not yet participating and help to bring them into the movement. But in addition to that, there are logistical problems with managing all of these schools coming on board. We started very simply and with a very big tent. We wanted to invite as many people into the movement as we can. We had institutions who were members, and then we had this group that we called affiliates. And to begin with, affiliates was just everybody who wasn't fitting into this category. But it became clear over time that to have software developers and NGOs in the same category as Universia and JOCW. They were different types of members making different types of contributions to the community, all very valuable, but very different. And so we've had to clarify some of the membership roles. That's part of the work that we did in the board meeting yesterday. That was, I think, a half hour of discussion, in fact. Improving membership representation. It's very difficult to coordinate activities across a global movement like this, and especially to keep the membership informed of activities that the central staff is undertaking, and also for the central staff to understand what's going on with the various groups around the world. This is very true of the regional consortia, too. The regional consortia come together because they are natural units of affiliation. They share common goals. They share common problems. In the United States, we share particular problems around intellectual property that are different from the issues that are faced in other regions. And so these regional consortia, I think, in many ways are the most powerful elements of the consortium and really have been powering the growth. Originally, we were getting 1 member, 2 members join the consortium. Now we're getting these regional consortia join with 10, 15, 20 members. But we have to find ways of both involving ourselves in the discussions that are occurring within those consortia and also helping those consortia to involve themselves in the discussions that are happening within the central organization. Finally, achieving financial stability is important for the consortium as well. We've been very fortunate to have the Hewlett Foundation come on as an early partner in starting this movement and getting the movement to go forward. We have both the same short-term problems that most organizations have in making sure we have funding for next year, the year after, but we also have long-term strategic problems that we need to address. building the capacity to make the organization sustainable over the long term. This is something that affects, again, the choice of executive director. It affects the choice of how we organize our consortium. And then finally, developing financial infrastructure. The consortium's money has been managed by MIT for some time now, but starting this year, we're going to begin to manage our own funding directly, and that takes a certain amount of infrastructure. So we've been working to build that, to put that infrastructure together. So this, very broadly, represents, I think, the strategic challenges that, as an organization, the consortium is facing. And much of what this actually represents pretty closely, I think, the agenda that we had for the consortium meeting. In one way or another, every item that we talked about touched on one of these strategic issues. I want to talk a little bit about the work that we did this week before the board meeting in the organizational effectiveness process that we undertook. That process was a day and a half of meetings where we brought the board together and we brought in some representatives of other organizations. We had a woman join us from UNESCO, Susan D'Antony, yeah. We spent a day and a half talking about the very fundamental issues of the consortium. What is the goal of the consortium? Why is it that we've come together? What is the constituency that we're trying to represent? Who are these members, and what are their needs, and how do we best serve them? We addressed the mission of the OpenCourseWare Consortium, which previously had said was to improve education and empower people through OpenCourseWare. That was the mission as of 2 days ago. Now what we're proposing to the membership is that we change the mission so that it says the following. The mission of the OpenCourseWare Consortium is to advance formal and informal learning through the worldwide sharing and use of free, open, high-quality educational materials organized as courses. And I think that this statement really does represent the key commitments of the OpenCourseWare Consortium. First of all, the type of world that we're trying to build, a world where the distance between the desire to learn and the opportunity to learn is growing smaller and smaller over time. And that if a person wants to know something or wants to learn something, all they need to do is reach out to the internet and find the materials that they need, whether that be within a degree program or outside of a degree program. It also represents the worldwide breadth of our vision, that we don't believe that there is any one set of course materials that is the right set of course materials, but what we're looking to build is a body of knowledge that represents the full range of cultures and the full range of disciplines that represent the human intellectual heritage. Finally, we're trying to do this through the provision of free and open course materials. There are many other activities that the members of the consortium undertake that are built around the idea of course materials. We have members who are interested in building interactive learning environments, who are interested in certification built on open course materials. And all of these are wonderful, wonderful initiatives that add richness to the movement. But the core commitment amongst all of the members is the provision of course materials, of educational materials in this model of courses. We also turned our attention to the goals of the consortium. The goals of the consortium had previously been to increase the number of OpenCourseWare projects in the world, to extend the reach and impact of course materials, and to improve the sustainability of the consortium and of the individual members. The goals as we've redrafted them, and this is still very much in a draft form, we now have 4 goals that we've identified. Again, to increase the quantity of OpenCourseWare materials. Obviously, we'll do this through more projects, so that's very similar to the first goal that we've had for a long time. But I think this recognizes more clearly that it's not the projects, but the end product that makes the difference in the world. And so we're encouraging more projects, yes, but we're encouraging the existing projects also to produce more and more material. To increase the value of OpenCourseWare materials to all users worldwide, we're trying to be, again, more specific about increasing the reach and impact. It's not just generally the reach and impact, but it's the reach and impact across the world and to all the users that we can help with this material. The third is to build and enable an OCW movement and connect it to the wider OER community. This is an explicit recognition within the goals of the consortium that we are embedded in a larger movement, that OpenCourseWare doesn't stand alone, but that there are also open journals, open textbooks, open software, and a range of other open educational tools. And if we can begin to foster ties between OpenCourseWare and these other open movements, it will make each of the movements stronger. And finally, to improve the consortium infrastructure. This is great because it's somewhat of an internal-facing goal. But this does include issues of sustainability. How can we make our organization more sustainable? How can we provide better services to the members? How can we facilitate communication through technical means and through other means to continue to build this movement and to continue to build the organization? So this represents the very start of some important work that the board and the membership and the committees and the community as a whole has to do. This is the framework and the beginning of building this 2.0 version of the OpenCourseWare Consortium. And we're going to be collectively working very hard in the next couple of years to take these goals and turn them into a vibrant organization that serves the needs of its membership and encourages and supports them as they provide the courseware that really is the heart and soul of the OpenCourseWare Consortium and the OpenCourseWare movement. So thank you.